Tonight, a bold announcement from Prime Minister Mark Carney is echoing across Canada, Europe, and Washington. Canada, a nation that has long stood for peacekeeping, has pledged troops for a future mission in Ukraine. But here's the twist: Carney says this won't be during the fighting, it will be after the ceasefire. So why now?
Canada will always stand in solidarity with Ukraine.
Why make this promise while bombs are still falling, and while the war's end feels uncertain? Is this Canada showing strength on the world stage, or quietly walking into a geopolitical gamble that could reshape our military, our budget, and our foreign relations for years to come? Stay with us, because in the next half hour, we'll break down what was said, what it really means, and how this could affect not just soldiers abroad, but families right here at home. To understand why this announcement matters, we need to rewind. Canada has always carried a reputation, sometimes more myth than reality, as a nation of peacekeepers. From Cyprus to Bosnia, from Rwanda to Haiti, Canadians in blue helmets have patrolled some of the world's most dangerous conflicts. But the last 2 decades shifted that story. Afghanistan marked a turning point. Our military wasn't just peacekeeping, it was warfighting. Kandahar became a word etched into Canadian memory, alongside the names of the 158 Canadians who never came home. Since then, Canada's role has been more cautious. We've contributed trainers in Iraq. We've led a NATO battle group in Latvia. We've supplied billions in aid and weapons to Ukraine since Russia's 2022 invasion. But full-scale deployments? Those have been rare. And that's what makes Carney's announcement so significant. This week, Carney confirmed Canada's commitment during a meeting of the so-called Coalition of the Willing, a Europe-led group planning for Ukraine's post-war security. His words were direct: Canada stands ready to deploy troops, provide training, and commit to Ukraine's long-term defense. The key phrase: after a ceasefire. This isn't about sending soldiers into an active battlefield. It's about what comes next: peace enforcement, training, stabilization. Think Bosnia in the 1990s, but with a far more dangerous adversary looming on the border, Russia. Here's the question Canadians are asking: why now? Why would Prime Minister Carney announce a post-ceasefire mission when the war in Ukraine shows no clear end in sight? The answer lies in strategy, both military and political. First, NATO is already planning for what comes after. Western allies know that when the shooting eventually stops, Ukraine won't suddenly be safe. The fear is clear. Russia may pause, regroup, and strike again. That means any ceasefire could look less like peace, and more like a ticking clock. By declaring Canada's readiness now, Carney signals 2 things. To allies, that Canada is dependable, not a free rider. To Russia, that even if the guns fall silent, NATO won't walk away. But there's another layer: domestic politics. Carney, still early in his tenure, is shaping his image. Where Trudeau leaned on humanitarian symbolism, Carney is pushing economic and security credibility. This Ukraine pledge lets him look tough abroad and statesmanlike at home. But Canadians have seen this movie before. Afghanistan started with promises of stability, and dragged on for over a decade. Which raises the stakes: is this smart foresight, or the beginning of a long entanglement? When Carney says, after ceasefire, it sounds reassuring. No combat, no direct war. But history shows peacekeeping can be just as dangerous. Look at Bosnia in the 1990s. Canadian peacekeepers were caught between rival militias. In Rwanda, they witnessed genocide unfold. Even in Cyprus, decades of tension still simmer. Ukraine could be tougher. Imagine Canadian troops stationed in a buffer zone, enforcing ceasefire lines, protecting aid convoys, training Ukrainian forces. They won't be facing militias with rifles, they'll be staring across the border at a Russian army. And here's the chilling part: if the ceasefire collapses, those peacekeepers become frontline soldiers in an instant. So is Carney betting on peace, or gambling with Canadian lives? Another question: what exactly is Canada committing? So far, no numbers have been announced. But military analysts estimate a stabilization mission could mean anywhere from 500 to 2,000 Canadian troops, rotating over several years. That's a significant commitment for a military already stretched thin, from Arctic patrols to NATO's Latvia mission. Then there's the money. Canada's defense budget is already under pressure. Tanks need replacing, jets are delayed, recruitment is down. Adding a Ukraine deployment means billions more in spending. Carney is framing it as an investment in global stability. Critics warn it could drain resources from Canada's own security needs, from wildfire response at home to Arctic sovereignty challenges. So here's the trade-off: help Ukraine secure peace, or risk leaving Canada vulnerable in its own backyard. When a prime minister makes a move this bold, one thing is certain: Ottawa erupts in debate. Mark Carney's Ukraine pledge is no exception. Within hours of his statement, every party leader had something to say, and none of it sounded the same. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre came out swinging. He called the pledge reckless and vague, arguing that Carney is writing checks the Canadian Armed Forces can't cash. His words were sharp: Canada can't defend its own borders, can't put out wildfires, but Carney wants to send troops overseas without a plan. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP took a different angle. Singh cautiously supported the idea of helping Ukraine, but blasted Carney for what he called blank check militarism. His demand: a clear exit strategy, transparency on costs, and guarantees for veterans when they come home. Meanwhile, the Bloc Québécois accused Carney of playing geopolitics at Quebec's expense. They warned that steelworkers, farmers, and taxpayers in Quebec would foot the bill, without seeing the benefits. In other words, Canada's parliament is united on one thing: Ukraine matters. But divided on everything else: how much to commit, how long to stay, and whether Canadians are truly ready. And what about ordinary Canadians? Public opinion is fractured, just like Parliament. On one hand, support for Ukraine remains strong. Canadians have donated millions to relief efforts, welcomed refugees into their homes, and rallied with blue and yellow flags in every major city. On the other hand, war fatigue is real. Many Canadians are asking, why spend billions overseas when groceries and housing are breaking families here at home? Military families carry their own burden. For them, Carney's words aren't abstract policy, they're personal. Parents wonder if their children will be deployed. Veterans question whether promises of support will actually materialize when troops return. So here's the question: is Carney leading Canadians into a noble mission, or into another long, costly commitment they didn't ask for? If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, make sure to follow our channel and hit subscribe. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story that matters to Canadians.